Champagne, can you clarify something about the wealth? Sure. For the wealth fund, will this apply to major projects like the proposed pipeline potentially from Alberta to BC, or maybe to some projects that are already going through the process like the LNG and electricity projects in northern BC?
Project of national interest, nation-building projects where we already have a big pipeline, as you've seen in the major project office. We already have $126 billion projects. But it's Canadian company, Canadian project. It's about, building wealth, collective wealth, but also allowing, I was just in Montreal talking to people, and what they like is the retail aspect, that you and anyone else in Canada wants to put a bit of savings to be able to benefit in the growth. And I think that's truly in line with Canadian values. It's really a distinguishing factor of our own sovereign wealth fund, allowing individuals to be able to benefit in the growth. And I think that's truly Canada for all. That's why we structure it this way.
But could we see taxpayer dollars beyond what was outlined by Tim Hodson at committee the other week? Could we see this wealth fund used for that proposed pipeline from Alberta to BC?
Listen,
is it
like
a possibility?
I said, today we're announcing the creation of the fund. Tomorrow you'll see a bit more detail in the spring statement. Then we'll be consulting with a number of stakeholders, financial institutions, investors, to really structure it in the best possible way, looking at best practices, not only here but around the world. That's the work we've been doing. And there'll be more details as we go forward, obviously.
Monsieur Champagne,
oui.
La première ministre du Québec, Christine Fréchette, est à Washington aujourd'hui.
Oui.
Elle a rencontré d'ailleurs
Jamieson Greer. Ce que j'ai vu dans les photos, du moins, j'étais pas là.
Est-ce que vous pensez que c'est une bonne nouvelle, ça? Ou est-ce que ça brouille le message?
Non, je pense que c'est une bonne chose. Vous savez, le plus grand nombre de voix canadiennes, québécoises se font entendre, le mieux. Je pense qu'on est tous alignés sur un même message. On se bat pour l'industrie du bois, on se bat pour l'industrie de l'aluminium, on se bat pour l'industrie de l'acier, l'automobile. Moi, je suis très content de voir la première ministre du Québec amener sa voix. On en avait discuté même ensemble récemment. C'est une bonne chose. Écoutez, plus on peut avoir de voix qui portent le message, de dire que c'est tout à l'avantage des Américains aussi d'avoir le commerce avec le Canada, le Québec. Vous savez, on est un grand producteur d'aluminium qui aide à construire un nombre de produits, mais aussi il y a une question d'abordabilité, d'efficacité de l'économie américaine avec les produits canadiens.
Est-ce qu'elle a parlé avec votre gouvernement avant, pour que vous entendiez sur le message qu'elle peut porter à Washington?
Il y a toujours plusieurs contacts. Mme Fréchette vient d'être élue première ministre. Moi, je la connais depuis longtemps. Elle a rencontré le premier ministre récemment. Moi, j'ai bien confiance que le message qu'elle a porté à Washington, c'est un message qui est bien aligné. Parce que, dans le fond, quand c'est dans l'intérêt collectif de faire valoir l'importance de l'industrie québécoise pour la prospérité en Amérique du Nord. Puis je suis convaincu que son message a été bien entendu à Washington. Merci. À tantôt.
The new wealth fund that was announced today, do you think that should apply to projects such as the pipeline or maybe even the new LNG and the electricity transmission projects that were put forward to the MPO in northern British Columbia?
Well, I think when the Prime Minister announced a sovereign wealth fund, you would think that it would look like Norway's sovereign wealth fund. In fact, he even compared it to the Norwegian sovereign wealth fund. Well, the model is completely different. The Norwegian model is actually making sure that oil and gas contribute to their sovereign wealth fund. In fact, they have $1.7 trillion US in their sovereign wealth fund, and in last year alone, they earned $242 billion just on royalties. This looks nothing like that. He's giving oil and gas companies and resource extraction companies another free pass. And he has tools. He has the Canadian pension plan. Why isn't he looking to them to invest here in Canada and legislate that? So, I mean, this is nothing like the Norwegian model of a sovereign wealth fund. Where is our sovereign wealth fund? Well, I'll tell you where it is. It went to CEOs and investors. And that's what's happened for decades in this country. When instead he could reverse that and follow the Norwegian model truly and have resources for future generations that can invest in clean energy, that can build an economy for the future. But instead he's continuing to allow that to escape us by letting fossil fuel companies earn record profits, give that money to investors and CEOs instead of creating a true fund that could move us into the next generation, and having resources to be able to lean back on.
So you'd want to see it more modeled like the Heritage Fund in Alberta in a way where...
Well, the Heritage Fund in Alberta is minuscule what it should be. let's face it. I mean, the Alberta government and many of the Alberta MPs that are here, Conservatives, they're active lobbyists for the oil and gas industry. They uphold the broken structural model that allows, you know, all profits from oil and gas to continue to flow to CEOs and shareholders instead of investing in future generations in the way Norway does. Norway has over $1.7 trillion US in their sovereign wealth fund, earning, like I said, $242 billion last year just in dividends and royalties off of their sovereign wealth fund. Where's ours? In the pockets of CEOs, in the pockets of investors.
But just wondering as well how you might feel like, I don't have an answer for this yet. I've asked whether this could apply to, let's say, the proposed pipeline, whether we could see federal cash or Canadians investing their own money into that pipeline. If that is the case, I'll wait for the confirmation, but if that is the case, what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are this, that we have a pipeline that's owned by the taxpayer, $34.5 billion. Sorry, I see a truck running by.
That's fine, thank you.
Look, there is a pipeline owned by Canadians. It was, you know, when it was bought, it was in below $10 million, $7 million. It ran up a tab of $34.5 billion. Despite the fact that the big five oil and gas companies earned $25 billion last year alone in profits, none of them have stepped forward to buy the existing pipeline. Now we're talking about another pipeline. Well, it certainly shouldn't come from taxpayers. That's for sure.
Thanks so much. Appreciate your time.
Sovereign wealth fund.
It's not really a sovereign wealth fund. In order to have a sovereign wealth fund, you've got to run a surplus. You've got to have wealth in the system to put in that fund. It's actually a debt fund that's going to be paid for by Canadians against their will. And frankly, there's a whole lot of things that you can do with $25 billion, like cut taxes and cut regulation to actually get things built in this country.
Thank you.
Bonjour. Bonjour, bien contente d'être avec vous. Moins contente par contre d'y être parce qu'on vient juste de voter à l'instant avec la nouvelle majorité en Chambre sur un bâillon. Donc ça donne le ton pour ce qui s'en vient à la Chambre des communes. Un petit retour en arrière. Le Parlement était minoritaire, vous le savez, et malgré tout, c'était pas dans l'attitude du gouvernement d'être la quintessence de la magnanimité, malgré qu'il fut en situation minoritaire. Et maintenant qu'il est en situation majoritaire, on voit le caractère des libéraux qui ressort. Le 13 avril, il y avait trois élections partielles qui leur ont donné leur majorité. Et dès le lendemain, ils nous disaient « on veut collaborer avec les oppositions, on veut entendre leur voix, prendre en considération leurs différents avis. » Première chose qu'ils font, comme je le mentionnais, voter en Chambre une motion pour revoir la structure des comités, changer la formation des comités. Et non seulement ils le font unilatéralement, ils l'ont fait sans nous en parler, sans demander nos avis, sans nous aviser autrement que par un bref courriel nous disant que les motions allaient être déposées en Chambre. Et là, alors qu'on a à peine discuté de la motion de formation des comités, on nous la passe sous bâillon. Et je rappelle que c'est dans un contexte où le gouvernement réussissait à faire avancer ces projets de loi. Souvent, c'est l'argument qu'on nous donne, « Ah, ça bloque en comité, on a besoin d'une majorité, on a besoin de s'assurer d'avoir les voix suffisantes pour faire passer des projets de loi. » Mais on a fait une analyse rapide et le nombre de projets de loi qui est passé par les comités, qui est sorti des comités, est même plus élevé que dans certains cas sous un gouvernement majoritaire libéral. Donc, c'est vraiment pas une question d'avoir une majorité en Chambre et une réflexion de ça en comité pour faire passer des projets de loi. Et les deux seuls endroits où on a présentement des filibustes, de la perte de temps en comité, ce sont les libéraux qui eux-mêmes filibustent sur des demandes, entre autres du Bloc québécois, notamment d'avoir les réels chiffres sur le projet Contrecœur pour savoir si on nous dit que ce sera rentable. Parfait, on veut avoir les documents qui le prouvent. Et sur la question du dossier Curam, où on demande également à avoir des documents. Et encore une fois, c'est les libéraux qui filibustent. Donc, ça donne le ton pour ce qui s'en vient. Et peut-être un message à tous ceux qui se font dire par le gouvernement « on collaborera avec vous ». Tenez-vous-le pour dit, visiblement, c'est pas dans leurs habitudes, dans leur façon de faire. Et quand on dira dans le futur que le gouvernement du Canada va collaborer avec le Québec et les provinces, je n'y croirai que lorsque les deux seront chacun de leur côté un pays et qu'ils se parleront d'égal à égal.
Que pensez-vous de l'annonce qui a été annoncée ce matin par le premier ministre Carney? Est-ce que c'est une avenue que vous trouvez c'est une avenue que vous privilégiez de votre côté ou c'est le genre d'affaires dans lequel vous investirez jamais?
La façon dont on le voit, parce qu'il manque quand même encore de l'information, c'est qu'on nous dit « donnons une carte blanche de 25 milliards pour des projets dont on ne sait pas encore qu'est-ce qu'ils seront, dont on ne connaît pas encore la gouvernance pour le fonds souverain, on ne connaît pas les différents critères. » Fait que finalement, il y aura 25 milliards dont on ne sait pas non plus d'où on prendra l'argent pour investir dans ce qui vraisemblablement, ultimement, sera des projets pétroliers. On peut s'en douter de par les discours que le premier ministre tenait pendant la campagne électorale, à savoir qu'il voulait faire du Canada une superpuissance énergétique. Et on le voit dans le continuum de projets de loi qui ont été adoptés depuis l'élection du gouvernement, dont C5 et C15, qui permettent de contourner notamment des lois environnementales, mais beaucoup d'autres. Et on se doute que ce sera pour inciter, dans certains cas, des acteurs privés à peut-être vouloir aller de l'avant avec des projets pétroliers, gaziers. C'est ce qui semble se dessiner. J'imagine qu'on aura une confirmation plus le temps va avancer, mais on serait surpris qu'il en soit autrement.
Résumer que ce serait seulement pétrolier. Il n'y a pas juste l'industrie pétrolière au Canada. Je veux dire, on a le fonds FTQ, CSN, la Caisse de dépôt qui fait précisément ça, investir au Canada. Pourquoi ça serait un problème quand il y a la feuille d'érable dessus?
C'est pas la feuille d'érable qui est le problème dans ce cas-ci, c'est la question de la transparence dans un contexte où on a déjà annoncé une intention marquée d'aller de l'avant avec des projets pétroliers. Effectivement, il y aura d'autres choses. On peut penser à certaines mines de graphite et tout, mais on peut s'attendre à ce que ce soit peut-être quelque chose d'un peu plus marginal dans un contexte où ce qu'on entend, c'est une réelle volonté d'augmenter la production et ultimement de finalement donner de l'argent public, de l'argent des contribuables aux entreprises pétrolières. J'aimerais bien que l'avenir me fasse mentir, mais ce qu'on voit depuis le début de l'élection de ce gouvernement-là, et à preuve, les conservateurs semblent trouver ça très agréable aussi, assez pour les faire traverser, les faire soutenir presque dans la joie et l'enthousiasme les projets de loi qui permettent justement de développer le pétrole et le gaz. Qu'on me fasse la preuve, par le contraire, que ce n'est pas une façon d'utiliser 25 milliards de dollars pour l'envoyer à de l'industrie pétrolière en se mettant en plus un paravent. Le gouvernement a dit on veut que ce soit à un bras de distance des décisions gouvernementales. On ignore encore quelle sera la structure et quel sera le mode de gouvernance de cette agence-là. Mais on se doute que quand ça fera leur affaire, ils seront bien contents de pouvoir dire c'est une entité indépendante, nous n'avons pris aucune décision.
Alexandre Bovis, son départ, qu'en pensez-vous? Puis en plus, on apprend qu'il est souverainiste. Est-ce que vous ne regrettez pas de l'avoir pas recruté?
En fait, je pense qu'il fait une belle preuve par l'exemple que 15 ans sur la colline parlementaire à Ottawa, ça rend indépendantiste. Donc, mais on lui souhaite le meilleur des succès. On verra comment cette belle profession de foi-là pourra bien cadrer avec ses votes par le passé qui étaient, dans certains cas, très centralisateurs. Donc, il semble faire une drôle de transition d'un parti très centralisateur vers un parti qui se dit indépendantiste. J'imagine qu'il y aura de belles questions à lui poser là-dessus. Mais à tout événement, on se réjouit quand même toujours lorsque quelqu'un confirme des convictions indépendantistes. Comme disait quelqu'un qui nous manque beaucoup, que le dernier entré laisse la porte ouverte.
The two English versions of Michelle and Madame Bizetti's excellent questions. First of all, on the Sovereign Wealth Fund, we have the Case Depot, we have the Alberta Heritage Fund. Why or why not is this Sovereign Wealth Fund good or bad? And then I'll get to the Bloor East question.
Well, we'll get more clarity on whether it's good or bad when we get the details. That is still to come. But so far, basically what we understand is that the government asks for a blank check of $25 billion to invest in what we suppose will be oil and gas industry. We have that feeling as it started during the election with the Prime Minister saying that he wanted to make Canada an energy superpower. And we, since then, had two bills passed, C5 and C15, who basically raises the, what would refrain the industry to decide to adhere to different projects if they had cold feet about projects because they feared that the legislation would refrain them. Now, there's no reason to be afraid as the government has lifted these issues. So we have a tendency to think that the money will be spent mostly for gas and oil projects. I beg to be corrected. if it's not the case, but I would still be surprised. And as for Mr. Bulris, the second question.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's proved by example that passing 15 years on the Hill makes you, in the end, an independentist. And for the rest, we wish him luck. Otherwise, it will be interesting to have him answering questions about how he transitioned to what was one of the most centralizing parties on the Hill in Ottawa to a party that claims to be independentist. That's going to be interesting to listen to, but in the meanwhile, we are still happy that there's one more independentist on the scene, and as Mr. Parizeau once said, may the last one to enter the room leave the door open.
Can you win, Rosemont?
À Washington, la première ministre du Québec est à Washington aujourd'hui. Elle a rencontré un haut gradé de l'administration Trump, quand même, Jamieson Greer, aujourd'hui. Est-ce que vous trouvez que ça brouille le message, ça, du Canada, ou c'est plutôt positif, vous pensez?
Je ne suis pas certaine de comprendre dans quel sens la prémisse dit que ça brouille le message du Canada.
Il y a plusieurs intervenants ici qui ont dit quand même que quand il y a plusieurs interlocuteurs à Washington, ça peut causer de la friture sur la ligne, disons. Est-ce que vous pensez que c'est le cas maintenant avec Mme Fréchette, ou vous voyez plutôt ça d'un bon œil?
Comme je n'ai pas vu les tenants et aboutissants de la rencontre, je ne pourrais pas me prononcer sur ce qui pourrait avoir été coulé publiquement des tenants et aboutissants de la rencontre. Par contre, je vais toujours me réjouir qu'il y ait une voix qui parle pour le Québec, plutôt que d'avoir, par exemple, celle d'un premier ministre qui disait une économie plutôt que 13. Le Québec a son économie propre, ses fleurons propres. Qu'il soit connu par Washington, je pense qu'en soi, c'est jamais une mauvaise nouvelle.
You said there's lots of collaboration now that there's a majority, but Frank Caputo, conservative, just came out here to say his private members bill just got passed, third reading. So isn't that a sign of collaboration in the opposition?
I think what we've always done with the Bloc, we analyze projects on their merits. I won't speak for the Conservatives who might decide to vote on different things with other reasoning, but on our part, that's what we've always done, analyzing every bill, every motion, every projects of study in committee for the merits, of the idea. So that won't change. But it's indeed true that it shows there can be collaboration. We could have been a dance partner for different issues without the Liberals having to manage themselves to get a majority. But it was up to the Liberals and the Conservatives in that case. On our part, it won't change the way we analyze things and the way we do hard work in the room.
Petrie? It's been NDP, it's been Bloc.
Sorry,
the circumscription, Rosemont Petit-Petrie. Can you win that?
Well, it will be up to the voters, but we, as we did in every by-elections, we'll have a strong presence on the ground and we'll voice the message. But in the end, it's never us to decide. But an interesting thing is with the Conservatives having maybe a hard time having direction, it feels like we're the real opposition in the House, and maybe that's something that we'll hear on the ground in Rosemont if it's a race between the Liberals and the Bloc. Maybe it's going to be a way to analyze the situation. Having a strong opposition and a stronger one with an extra member would be, of course, a very good thing, but it's going to be up to the voters to decide.
It's a sovereign wealth fund.
The example that's always quoted is the one from Norway, but we don't have any detail, or at least I don't have any details about what we would like to do here in Canada, so I can't really comment.
Some people are saying that it's possible that it could be, the money in it could be used for additional pipeline projects. What do you think of that idea?
There's two key words in what you just said, could and possible. There's lots of speculation.
Right.
Let's see what the announcement is, let's see what the details are, and then I'd be happy to comment. Thank you.
Question sur le voyage de Christine Fréchette à Washington.
Je ne suis pas au courant du voyage, fait que je peux pas vous dire. Je sais qu'elle est allée à Washington, là, mais je n'ai pas plus de détails.
Elle a rencontré l'ambassadeur Jamieson Greer, un haut gradé quand même de l'administration à Washington. Est-ce que vous pensez que c'est une bonne chose, ça, que la première ministre rencontre comme ça un haut gradé? Est-ce que vous pensez que ça brouille le message canadien là-bas?
Comme je vous dis, vite comme ça, là, je ne suis pas en mesure de vous répondre, mais je suis sûr qu'on a sûrement quelqu'un qui suit ce dossier-là de plus proche qui serait capable de vous répondre. Fait que, je peux travailler à vous envoyer quelqu'un.
Wow, thank you very much. I never thought I would be standing here a number of years ago as a parliamentarian when I was a Crown prosecutor dealing with the scourge of intimate partner violence Today, we took a gigantic step forward as a country and as a parliament in passing Bill C-225, also known as Bailey's Law, to the Senate. For those who aren't aware, Bill C-225 is one of the largest changes to the law of intimate partner violence in Canadian history. What it will do is when there's a history of coercive control and there's a homicide, that will automatically make the murder first-degree murder. Also, will update the law of evidence. It will create a reverse onus for people who are on peace bonds who seek bail. And it will also tell people that a person whose criminal record discloses battery of an intimate partner will actually call it violence against an intimate partner rather than just calling it assault. Right now, it just says assault, whether you beat up somebody at the bar, beat up somebody on the street, or beat up somebody in the context of an intimate relationship that's behind closed doors. We know that in the latter instance, people end up dead at a disproportionate rate. I'm so proud to be the sponsor of this bill, named after Bailey McCourt, whose abuser killed her about 3 hours after he was convicted of abusing her in court on bail. So this is for Bailey's family. I can't name them all, but we remember Trish, Shane, Karen, Debbie, Paige, her children. We also remember Carrie Weeb. She's often forgotten. Carrie was in the vehicle with Bailey at the time and is still recovering.
So, Mr. Caputo, just coming to the nub of the matter, you've got the Liberal members and the Bloc or whomever to get a majority, to get your private member justice bill passed in this Parliament. How did you do that, sir?
With a lot of hard work. I couldn't have done it without Bailey's family. I couldn't have done it without my staff. If you actually...
No, or somebody else.
No, we cooperated. We actually cooperated. If you go back and look at the first speeches, the Liberals didn't sound like they were going to support this bill. They essentially said, no, this bill, we can do something better. It was through hard work, through collaboration. We went to the Status of Women Committee. We touched hearts, both across Canada and across the aisle. I think that's how you get things done in a parliament, whether there's a minority or a majority.
Many members of Bailey's family since this passed, and what did they say?
I have sent text messages to a number of people who are stakeholders both within Bailey's family and outside of Bailey's family. I believe they're grateful, but we can't forget they're still in mourning. They lost somebody 8 months ago. It takes a really long time when a loved one is killed so brutally. The least we can do is rush this through the Senate so that Bailey's Law can become law as quickly as possible, and I hope the Senate hears that exhortation.
Are you worried about any holdups in the Senate at all?
Well, there's always potential for holdups, but we're going to keep on working. This is half the battle. I've talked to a couple of senators that sounds like they're going to be critics. We've already got to Senator Batters, who's going to be the bill's sponsor. So it's not like we just rest today, raise a glass of champagne and claim victory. No, this is the end of the beginning. Until this bill becomes law, preferably, when I say law, but gets royal assent, we will not rest. I will not rest. My Conservative colleagues will not rest. And I don't think victim advocates are going to rest until we see this through to royal assent, preferably before June.
Strike a deal with the Liberals, or they agreed to support this without any conditions attached?
Nope. No, we agreed to amendments, and those amendments were agreed to between myself and the government and our party, and they had to go through report stage. But in terms of a quid pro quo, I give you this, you give that, I had nothing to do with that.
About collaboration in Parliament. Does this encourage you that maybe more Conservative bills or bills from private members' bills, which are notoriously hard to pass, will get passed with support of all parties? Is it a more do you think you would have been able to do this in the previous Parliament?
Well, actually, I wrote the bill to change the name of child pornography to child sexual abuse and exploitation material. Because I was low in the lottery, I gave it to my colleague Mel Arnold, and that bill itself passed. So what this tells us is that when we have good ideas, they can pass. Now, I've also seen a number of really good ideas that didn't pass. We had 4 votes that were voted against by the government, including on parole ineligibility. One that's a real head-scratcher was from Rachel Thomas that said that if you sexually assault more than one victim, you should be doing consecutive time for that. That is an eminently reasonable bill. I have no idea why the government voted against it. So on one hand, I'm deeply heartened. On the other hand, I still say there's lots of work to be done.
Have they asked you to floor cross?
I'm not going anywhere. I think everybody has been approached, whether jokingly or not jokingly. I'm not going anywhere. I was elected as a Conservative. I'm proud to be a Conservative, and I will stay a Conservative.
Who approached you? Will you say? How'd they do it? Text? Call?
I don't usually text with members of
House
the
of Commons?
opposite party.
How are you feeling the amount of time you spent with Bailey's family and the advocacy to be able to kind of at least get the bill to this stage, knowing that it still has to go through Senate? And like, how are you just feeling as a member being able to do something like this?
It's a bit surreal. You know, I'm the child of immigrants. My parents came to Canada with nothing, and here I am with the ability to go stand on the green carpet behind me and influence Canadian law with the help of Bailey's family and Bailey's loved ones. On the one hand, I'm elated, but on the other hand, I'm mindful of the mourning that Bailey's family is going through. It shouldn't take somebody's brutal murder in order for us to change the law. But in order to change the law, we have to change societal attitudes that allow intimate partner to flourish and be a scourge that happens behind closed doors. And that's currently the case. It's the same with sexual offenses. We are currently denying the pervasiveness of intimate partner violence, of sexual offenses against children. I prosecuted all of these offenses. I can tell you they happen far more than we are willing to admit, and it's up to us in Parliament to address that here and now. This is one small step forward. It's a significant step, but I can tell you that I won't take my foot off the gas pedal until we take more steps.
One last question.
Yes.
Can I just ask a question specifically about, is it just killing of a cop that's elevated to first-degree murder automatically? Is there anything else?
Planned and deliberate is first degree. Killing of a peace officer is not just police. Killing of a peace officer is first degree. And killing in the course of an offense like sexual assault, robbery is also first degree murder. So this would be the fourth category.
Okay, thanks, Frank.
Thank you.